Any questions for Andre? Ed?
Really interesting talk. I was always taken by all the people who side with Goethe since like in the 20th century. I mean, is there like a neo-romanticism that struck him? I mean, do you have a picture on what it is that drives people to the kind of Goethe position? Is it kind of like a skepticism about science? That science, I mean, you really get that in those Goethe quotes really beautifully, that like science steals the wonder of life or something like this. It's cold and sterile. I mean, it just seems like I've seen books actually of people that, with collections of papers where everybody's saying, yeah, Goethe was right, Newton's wrong.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. It's like its own cottage industry. I mean, I was just wondering if you had any story on that. Or...
Well, I mean, I think that there is this sort of recurring tendency to want to reject science. And, I mean, Goethe himself associated science with the coming of industrialization. In his very old age, when he was writing the second part of Faust, he turned Faust from the hero that he'd been in the first part into a villain. Faust becomes the sort of property developer, sort of troll. And he had read Saint-Simon in the meantime. Goethe had, and found this all terrible, disgusting. He didn't have anything to do with that part of the modern world, and he associated science with that too. And I think part of this, I mean, obviously part of the anti-scientific impulse nowadays comes from the excesses of industrialization and those kinds of things. I think that gives it more kind of a social sort of background than it would have had in Goethe's own time. I don't know.
I remember one just brief, interesting anecdote about Goethe. I'm a big Beethoven fan, and the famous meeting of the two in 1812. I forget, it was outside of Vienna somewhere. They were walking down a road in a local town, and a local prince or something comes by, and Goethe bows to him, even though it's Goethe and he's great at that point. It's like 1811. Beethoven just goes right across. It cuts off the horse, because he's like, it's like, no princes. I don't have any patience for this. But it was really, a lot of people wrote about that. That really shows how Goethe's kind of conception of this is the natural order of things, right? That there's a sense in which
Goethe was a government minister.
Yeah, and that too.
Beethoven, not so much.
Beethoven, I'm better than these people. Well, Goethe didn't have the conception. I mean, but you can also see the conception maybe of a ordered society, right? Where everybody has the role and
Beethoven, by the way, was also a fan of the theory of colors and of the critique of judgment.
And a fan of time, at least in the famous line, the starry star. Forgetting.
Barb?
I was wondering if you might have been partly reaching for something like the biology of colors or the psychology of colors, which would have been scientifically at a different level.
Right, and that's what Ostwald was saying. Well, why didn't he just leave the physics alone? I mean, he didn't have anything to say about that anyway, and couldn't have just not have made this conceptual confusion. Cassirer thinks he couldn't have because this was part of his conception that because of this holism, he had to. He was. I don't follow that. I think. I don't know. Michael might have a different opinion. I don't see it.
It kind of reminds me of when I think about this big data analysis that everybody's doing now. I sort of want them to drill down and look at some of the individuals in it and see the actual some of the things behind these simplifications are. So,
Yeah, well, I think that, there are different styles of doing science, and Goethe obviously always perennially appeals to one kind of scientific culture. It's still
Great.
I wonder, maybe like an interesting extra character to consider might be Blake in the context of music.
well, he has the advantage of being someone that Howard quotes.
Yeah, exactly.
In that sort of role.
Very approvingly.
Approvingly, but also in the full knowledge of what he stood for. Blake was more comprehensively rejecting.
Sure.
He found the whole, obviously industrialization was more advanced in Britain by that time, and so he associated science directly with industrialization, found the whole thing just completely disgusting. satanic mills. So, yeah, I mean, that's, Romanticism certainly, as a general movement, was partly a backlash against industrialization and science, which was seen as the kind of.
But even more like, so the inscription under Blake's Newton is, he who sees only the ratio sees only himself, or something like that.
Sees only?
Himself.
Oh, I didn't.
So it has a similar kind of.
Yes.
George?
It's a factual question. I really don't know what happened in this period in the German-speaking world. After Laplace's celestial mechanics appeared, 1799 up to 1805, the reaction in England was really kind of extraordinary. It probably shows up most clearly in the Somerville books. But there was this sense of, we've come to a form of science we've never imagined possible to have before. Tremendous excitement. The analytical group formed in Cambridge to try to develop mathematics comparable to the French, etc. And then you get the delayed reaction to the Bridgewater treatises. When suddenly you think, science cannot be reconciled with religion. What was the reaction in the German-speaking world to Laplace?
Well, I'm trying to think of any immediate reaction. I mean, I think it probably only, Germany was in such upheaval then, right? I mean, the French armies were all over Germany, sort of burning and pillaging, and so it was. Although Napoleon did take out time when he was burning Jena, burning Weimar, to stop and want to meet Goethe.
And Laplace, right? There was a famous thing with Laplace that they met.
Goethe and Laplace?
Napoleon and Laplace.
Oh, Napoleon and Laplace, yeah.
Famously.
Right. I have no need of that hypothesis.
No, I mean, obviously later in the century, right, the German mathematical tradition took off then, in the second quarter of the 19th century. But I don't know of any immediate reaction.
Any more questions for Andre? If not, let's thank him again.